Well, hello everyone, I'm Tom Kenyon, I'm the CEO of the Sporting Shooters Association. Today my guest here is Adam Gray. He's the President of the South Australian Conservation and Wildlife Management Group, which is a SSAA group here. And we're just going to talk through the activities of the Conservation and Wildlife Management. We'll talk about what it is, how you get involved, we'll talk about suppressors, we'll talk about target species, we'll even have a look at how successful it's been and maybe some of the opposition that might occur to the activities of killing feral animals in South Australian parks. It's an interesting conversation. If you want more of these conversations, make sure you subscribe, leave comments below. If you've got any questions, we're always happy to answer questions. Leave them below and we'll get on to that. Adam, welcome. I'm very pleased to have you here as our guest today. The Conservation and Wildlife Management Group, a part of SSAA, just tell us what it is basically and how and what it does.
C&WM is a branch of SSAA. It was established in the early 90s. There was identification of some of our SSAA members with a bit of foresight around feral goat populations, particularly the Gammon and Gawler ranges.
Yep.
There was conversations with government about how to manage that, and you know, the origins of C&WM were born through an organisation called Hunting and Conservation. And for over 30 plus years now, the organisation has grown and developed and has been largely partnering with state government due on their lands to manage feral animal populations that have proven to be persistent and problematic.
Yeah, right. So in South Australia, the DEW is Department of Environment and Water.
Yeah.
They manage all the national parks. So whereabouts are you shooting?
Right across the state.
Yeah.
So we've got activities from the far west coast over Venus Bay through far north from Gammon and Gawler ranges, Flinders ranges, Aruna Valley. I think we've had shoots up around you know, some of the desert country as well, and we're right the way through down to the southeast, and that's particularly our southeast parks.
Yeah, okay. So I imagine the north is mostly goats, I assume, is it?
Goats and where the Department of Environment has reintroduced some native animals such as quoll.
Yeah.
The activities are focused on predators, so foxes and cats.
Foxes,
Yeah.
Yeah. I imagine they run baiting programs and things like that as well, do they?
They do. So there's obviously baiting, 1080 baiting, for traditional sort of baiting. There's also the new Felixes that they're using, trialling still for cat management, which are smart. But what we know with feral animal control is there's no silver bullet, and an integrated approach is most successful, and ground shooting really is a vital part of that integrated approach.
Yeah. So in conjunction with the poisoning and the Felixes, which are a little, basically a device that sprays poison on cats. It recognises them with cameras and AI, sprays them, and they go off and die. And they put these around populations of quolls and things like that, I think.
Yeah.
So you've got them, you've got the baiting, 1080 particularly effective with foxes, not so effective with cats, and then ground shooting as well on top of that. So
yeah, I mean for goats in particular, the mustering's important.
Yeah,
that helps keep population down. That's obviously dependent on prices, meat prices in particular. So as that fluctuates, the intensity of the mustering, ebbs and flows.
Yeah, so high prices, lots of mustering, low prices, not much.
And we see that. So when we go out on activities where prices have been low for a while, mustering's been down, we see populations of goats increase significantly.
Okay,
Yeah.
and is that a fairly quick thing? Like, over the course of a year, or you'd see the goat population increase quite rapidly?
I think I mean, they breed pretty quickly, but it'd probably take 18 months, 2 years to really show a big difference. But the mustering certainly does take out big numbers of populations where the numbers are intense. Where the goats are scattered through the environment, they're obviously a little bit more challenged to muster, but and that's where we come in.
I assume they're using helicopters for their mustering, is it?
The bulk of the mustering is with helicopters, but there's also ground mustering. So quite often you see horses involved, but also quads and motorbikes.
Yeah, so I suppose they round them up, push them into yards, put them on trucks, and then ship them out, and selling them. I assume the market for goat meat's mostly overseas.
Yeah, it's an international market. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. And that's just they're a commodity. Price fluctuates, and then so we come into our own or not. Then down the southeast, you talked about southeast. I assume that's deer. Mostly.
Yeah, that's part of the National Feral Deer Eradication Program. So South Australia's a signatory for that.
Yeah.
The Department for Environment has been focusing on their parks. We shoot in about, I think it's 10 to 12 parks down in the southeast. We undertake activities in March and July, 3 weeks of activities, and we've seen populations of deer in those parks drop over the 5 or 6 years we've been involved. So the combination of helicopter shooting and ground shooting is really making a difference.
Right. So I mean that's a program that's going on in South Australia in particular. I mean I know in other states as well, but the helicopter shooting has been quite intensive in the southeast for the last year or so. And then of course you guys are out in the parks as well. So how does what's a typical shoot look like? How long do they last? You know, what's the process?
They're quite varied, and it just depends. We have an activity coordinator that undertakes all the engagement with the government departments to make sure that our standard operating procedures are up to date. They're fit for purpose. Coordinates registration of our members. Members would then get advice a few weeks out from the activity, start date, finish dates. They're typically no more than usually 7 days.
Yep.
Saturday through to a Sunday is typical. Some are slightly shorter, so there might be a start on a Thursday night, finish on the Sunday.
Yep.
Members will drive out. There may be accommodation in the parks or at the venue. There may not, so quite often there's bush camping involved.
Yeah, cool.
And then the activity coordinator will, if there's multiple teams, there'll be team leaders, and the team leaders will coordinate usually up to 4, 5, 6 members on the activity. They'll have designated parcels of land in which they're responsible for, and then they'll coordinate the activity in line with the operating procedures that have been defined with due. So,
yeah, cool.
Goat shoots are typically during the day.
Yeah. And is that just walking, like on foot, basically?
There are some activities which are predominantly walking.
Yeah.
There are a number of activities where vehicle tracks are able to be used, so you can drive through a property, identify, targets, see the goats running through the hills, jump out of the car and you're on foot.
Yeah.
And we're now starting to see, and this is quite an interesting shift in our operations, the use of drones.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about drones. So are you using just visual or thermal, or how do you use the drones? At
this point in time, mostly they're just visual, so they're not a thermal camera.
Yeah.
They obviously have capacity to do that, but they're quite pricey. So some of our members are trialling the use of drones to identify where animals are. I mean, goats have this wonderful capacity to just disappear into the landscape.
They are pretty good at that.
So they're really, so drones are useful. They can literally be within 100 or 200 metres of you and you wouldn't see them. But that elevated view over a ridge line, in a gully, really helps us, minimise our time travelling by foot through some pretty treacherous country.
Yeah.
And identify targets and maximise our efficiency.
Yeah. I imagine it would help you plan out your approach and everything else as well a lot better, and you're not just stumbling across a mob and having to react. You sort of got an idea of where they are. And,
yeah. So that's obviously a trend that I think we'll see grow over time. But at the moment, it's generally in what I would describe a bit of a trial phase.
Yeah.
We're trialling it with our partners due on their land. They need to be comfortable that we aren't causing any issues with bird life, predatory birds in particular, that we don't hit power lines, we don't obstruct any air traffic that might be in the area, which is generally not typical, but these are the things we've got to be, managing, and our insurance for these as well is another issue that we're sort of working through as well. So, but I think we'll see more of them in the future, not less.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that actually. And again, it's a good result, right? If you improve your efficiency, if you're improving your kill rate in terms of, that's our job, is to go out there and eliminate animals from the parks. And if we're doing that more efficiently, fantastic. I might ask you then about suppressors, right? So we've been having quite a discussion internally and talking to the federal government and everything else about suppressors. As you know, a suppressor moderates or reduces the sound, doesn't eliminate the sound of a rifle, but it does reduce the sound of it. Certainly my view, and I'd be very keen to hear what you think about it, but I think it would make these programs, these C&WM programs, a lot more effective if we could use suppressors, but I'd be keen to get your idea on that.
The success of C&WM and with our partners due is largely about removing feral animals from the environment. And so we're always looking at opportunities to become more efficient with what we do. Drones was an example of that. Moderators present another level of efficiency for our activities. So An example being for our Southeast Parks program, we're targeting a species, feral deer, that has largely been shot at plenty of times before. Helicopters have been flying over, they're quite flighty, and whilst we're on those activities, we also encounter other feral animal species like foxes, cats, rabbits. And so moderators offer us an opportunity to not only improve the number of feral animals we take out of the environment, because we're able to operate in a more quieter environment, we're able to operate, you know, with a bit more stealth. We're able to target add-on species as well quietly, so we're not disturbing our primary target, being the deer, so we can take out foxes and cats and rabbits while we're essentially waiting for deer to present themselves, which is typically the way we target the deer. You just can't ignore the fact that in other operations too, where we have multiple firearms going off in small areas, WHS or safety for our members is really important too, and so moderating the sound also presents a health issue for our members in being able to mitigate some of the hearing loss that a lot of our members are experiencing. Aside from that, effectiveness and efficiency is a real plus.
Firstly, tell us the setup of a deer shoot. Talking about Southeast deer, how does that work? How do you space out people? How do you target these animals?
So this activity's evolved over 5 or 6 years, and largely deer were targeted by spotlighting. So vehicles would drive around a park using traditional spotlighting, and we would shoot them when we encountered them. The challenge that we have with the conservation parks is we typically have a large vegetated block of land with a boundary track around the outside, which may be 5, 6, 7 metres width at the most. And we don't have the capacity to shoot animals once they leave the park and into the private property, unless we've got an agreed arrangement,
overshoot,
which we're still trying to grow and expand. And so spotlighting has its limitations, and a lot of the deer in the southeast again have encountered either poachers on government land or other spotlighting activities, and so they can hear a vehicle travelling, they can see a spotlight on the horizon, and that'll alert them to activity. So our activity has evolved now, so we're largely using thermal equipment. And the greatest success rates we now achieve are by spacing out our members sitting on boundaries. We identify where deer activity has been present, so we'll look through where there are push-throughs in fences. We'll look at the tracks, identify animal activity, and we'll locate our members sitting in vehicles or in hides along those tracks. 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we'll set up and we'll sit there until, however long our members can last, and we'll wait for the animals to come out of the park, and we usually have that 7 metre gap in which to shoot them. A lot of our members are using thermal scopes now.
Thermal and night vision, or both, or mostly thermal?
Look, you Google it, there's a lot of pros and cons. My experience has been night vision works really, really well. It has some limitations when you are sitting hard up against vegetation, because the IR torch will pick up any vegetation that's overhanging you, and you won't be able to see the 200 metres you're looking. But night vision does provide excellent animal recognition capacity, so you can see the spots on a fallow quite clearly. You can identify the difference between a fallow and a red very easily. Thermal, you don't have that problem with picking up either vegetation that you're sitting against or atmospheric moisture or dust or what have you. You don't get that reflection that you do off an IR torch. But thermal does have some limitations with animal identification. Really not so much of a problem for our activities, because anything leaving a conservation park shaped like a deer is 99.999% a deer, and that's our target species. Foxes and cats are easily identified, rabbits are easily identified, so less of an issue for us. We don't have livestock coming out of the park where animal identification is an issue, and we don't necessarily have to identify the difference between a fallow or a red or a chatal, or if it's a deer, it's dead.
Brilliant. Coming back to suppressors, that means, I suppose, that you could theoretically bring people in a little bit closer together in your line, because they're not having the same effect in noise and driving people away. So while you're sitting there, you're seeing rabbits, cats, foxes, and I assume you're not shooting them because you don't want to scare off the deer, because that's your designated target. But if you had a suppressor, you'd have probably 2 rifles, I assume, one for your deer and one for other animals, and you'd be able to deal with a few of those things. And I mean, let's face it, they all cause tremendous damage, cats, foxes in particular.
I mean, the moderators also present us an opportunity to limit the noise in which we operate, operating within in the broader environment. So, neighbouring properties, farmers, particularly in the southeast, are persistently, dealing with poachers, people coming onto their property that aren't authorised to do so, shooting. If we can operate in a low, impact way, where we don't have spotlights flying all over the horizon, and our firearms are moderated, then our impact on the broader environment is less as well. And that certainly plays out when you're talking about more urban areas.
Yeah.
And so where we might have activities where properties are closer together, it presents some opportunity as well there.
Yeah, true.
So,
Adelaide Hills being a prime example.
Adelaide Hills, Flurio, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of smaller blocks, 5-10 acres, that sort of thing.
Up through the Barossa, Clare Valley.
Yeah, great. Are there any other states where they're allowed to use suppressors that you're aware of?
But I'm not going to be able to name them for you. But I do see a lot of footage from New Zealand and other countries.
New Zealand, definitely. Yeah, I know New Zealand. UK's just legalised them just recently. It's still very difficult right around Australia, as far as I can tell. I know the C&WM group in Victoria has access to a small batch of suppressors that they use in their shooting, and then under the supervision of their department and everything else. So how involved is the department? That's something I've been wondering. Like, are they out there all the time when you guys are out there?
Look, we see the rangers will typically come and start an activity, and they will help us signpost. They obviously indicate on their websites and various other media outlets that the parks are closed for a particular period of time for ground shooting activities. So we've got a fantastic relationship with the department, and in particular the rangers out in the regions. They know our members really, really well, and they've got great relationships with them. So.
Has that changed over time? Were they a little nervous, do you think, when we first started going in there?
Look, I think the rangers really highly value volunteer ground shooting. It's a resource for them. We are incredibly low risk. We've had so very few incidences across our 30 plus years. We do a great job. It's a great service that we offer, and it's just something they wouldn't be able to access with their limited budgets. And time. They'd be out 24/7 otherwise. They'd be working during the day and then trying to stay up late at night. Yeah. So we also support private wildlife conservancy organisations. So where landholders demonstrate strong conservation values for a parcel of land, we'll offer our support. So I know from Australian Wildlife Conservancy is an agency that we shoot on some of their land as well. And again, we've had long-standing relationships, not just with government departments, but other conservation-based organisations as well on their lands.
In terms of the number of parks around the state, how many are you getting into, and do you think there's room to expand the number of parks that you're in?
Unlike some of our eastern states, we are quite limited in our parks, size and scale of our parks, and so we're almost reaching a saturation point for the number of parks that we've got available to do ground shooting operations on.
So I've applied to join C&WM here in South Australia. That's under review, so hopefully I'm not found to be a disreputable person, which would be good. Then I've got to do the theory day, and then I've got to do my practical shooting test. What else after that?
Once you've successfully achieved your theory and your practical,
and sorry to interrupt you, I beg your pardon, I forgot to mention, practical shooting test is 100 metres freestanding, about a target about that big, and you've got to get a score of, what, 37 was it?
It's about 37 out of 50, I think.
So reasonably tight group at 100 metres freestanding with a 243 or above, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so you do that, and then what's next?
Yeah, so then you essentially become a probationary member. So you can apply. So we've got an activity schedule that's set out 12 months in advance. So you can have a look at where all of our activities are for the year and apply to go on an activity. You attend as a probationary member. So one of the members that is on the activity will be a mentor for you. I'd have to say that the emphasis for our probationary members is around the way in which you apply our safety procedures and protocols. There's nothing more important for C&WM is to have every one of our members operate their firearms and their activity in a safe manner in accordance with our protocols. Can't emphasise that enough. We want every one of our members to be out on a hunt and feel like they can trust every one of the other members that's there, and that everyone is following the same safety procedures. So that's a massive thing for us. And so, generally, how do you behave around camp? Are you a good participant? Are you well set up? You do 3 probationary activities. If you get through that, become a full member.
Yeah, okay.
If you want to do any activities that involve spotlighting or night activities, even thermals, you need to undertake spotlighting accreditation as well.
Yep.
That's a separate activity, and that literally just involves shooting out of a stationary vehicle at the range under spotlight conditions and showing that you can, again, hit a target at 100 metres.
It's quite an extensive program. You've got it operates in various guises in other states, I assume, like places in like Victoria, New South Wales, where there's more open access to national parks. I assume that the demand for C&WM is a bit less. But in other states, are you having much to do with other states at all?
No, we haven't. I mean, I think we're all established slightly differently. We've got different demands in each of the states. I mean, South Australia has a small number of parks. We did a great job, in colonisation of clearing land around the state. So, we're limited in the number of parks that we have, and our demands are slightly different from what other states have with their various departments for environment. So, we don't have an awful lot to do with the other C&WM nationally. Maybe we should.
So how effective has it been? Have you got an idea of what you've achieved over the last 30 years?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a fantastic brochure that's available on our website that talks about the several thousand goats that we've removed from the environment, the cat, foxes, even pigeon activities that we undertake in various places, and the deer program more recently. I know that goat numbers are in excess of several thousand from right across the state over the 30 plus years, and deer numbers are up in the several hundred now. So and again, our fox and cat activities in so our predator control in those really sensitive areas where we've had threatened species reintroduction. Sometimes it can be, the success of those programs could be just 1 or 2 feral animals taken out, 1 or 2 cats that just makes a difference, to the success of those.
Well, they destroy so many animals. That's the thing. For each cat, it's destroying thousands and thousands of native animals, so you're having a big impact.
We see it, so, for those members that attend the same activities year on year, you can see the damage, for example, goats do to the environment. You can see the pressure that they place on vegetation. You can see where they're present from the grazing that's occurred on native vegetation. And over time, where you've seen numbers controlled, you can see the vegetation start to recover. We also know that goats, in particular, where there's yellow-footed rock wallabies, not only compete for food, but they compete for habitat.
Right.
And so yellow-foot rock wallabies do not like goats climbing all over their environment. And so where we've managed to keep goat numbers under control, or at least to a reduced number, the yellowfoots have come back into certain areas, and populations have started to recover. So the department and our members have visibly been able to see where our activities have contributed, positively to our environment. So,
and where have you had that most success over time? If you had to identify 2 or 3 areas where you made the biggest contribution, where would you?
We've been active in the Ekka of Flinders Ranges National Park since the early 90s. I think my first ever activity with hunting and conservation back then was in 1994. Was, I think, our first activity in that part of the world. Yeah. And our Gammon and Gawler ranges have been around for quite some time as well. And whilst sometimes it's hard to see how preventative activities,
Yeah, that's right, proving a negative almost.
Proving a negative, but just the sheer numbers that we've been able to take out of those environments, just has to have had a significant difference. And we know, like I said before, the removal of predatory feral animals, foxes and cats, from areas where we've done reintroduction of native marsupials and mammals gives them a fighting chance. Yeah. In conjunction with other activities such as baiting and other control mechanisms, we're clearly part of the picture to try and help those get re-established. So do you run into any opposition? Is there anyone who just thinks you shouldn't be in the parks at all? As I said, the Southeast Deer Program has had moments where neighbouring properties just generally object to the feral deer eradication program. But we're fairly clear about our objectives, and we're very clear about the benefit to our environment that C&WM offers. The general population negativity and some of the political messaging we've had around firearms and firearms control, really rubs me the wrong way. I just think that where we've got activities and programs that C&WM offer and you see the benefits that ground shooting operates, and we are Australian citizens with rights to own firearms or privileges to own firearms and use them in a way that contributes in such a positive way. That's a message that I think we ought to really be amplifying, and so we can show the broader population is there is a place for firearms, and it does offer a really positive outcome for our environment, notwithstanding the sporting shooting component, but from a conservation perspective, it provides a huge contribution.
With the issue of suppressors, how do you find the department? Are they generally supportive of you using suppressors, or would they? So I mean, you're shooting on their land, and I imagine they've been involved in those discussions. So do they have an attitude about them at all, or a view on them?
From my exposure to this issue, we have no objection that I'm aware of from the Department for Environment and Water for using suppressors or moderators on their parks. They are very much interested in our efficiency in removing feral animals from their parks. They know the damage they cause, and they are landowners that want these, removed. The objection that we seem to have is from South Australian Police, SAPOL, and the Firearms Branch in progressing that. I think if through C&WM working with SSAA, we can present an argument, that speaks to the positive nature that C&WM can offer to this discussion, I think that's potentially offers a path forward. We obviously want to use moderators in a way that doesn't present any additional risk or profile issue for firearms use in Australia. We just want to become more efficient at what we do, and we think moderators is a tool that we would have in our kit bag to
I'd have to say that probably outside of a shooting range, your program seems to be one of the more regulated shooting environments in terms of that it's managed. If you go by yourself out on a block of land, you're not really supervised in any way, and you just behave as you want to, and we rely on people doing the right thing. But if you go to a shooting range, for instance, they're very strict about who can fire and when and all of that sort of stuff. And it sounds like C&WM is very similar in a way that it's very structured, put it that way, rather than regulated. It's a structured environment for shooting, and inherently safer as a result. So it's probably the ideal environment to maybe pilot using suppressors more widely or something like that.
You're right, we are incredibly structured, we are well governed, we have standard operating procedures, there are protocols to follow. I wouldn't let that put anyone off participating in C&WM activities, because it is, whilst we expect everyone to follow those things as well, it is a hugely rewarding activity to be involved in.
But it's sort of necessary in a way when you've got so many people shooting in a relatively confined area. Then you need to have some ground rules on how you do that.
Absolutely, and we know that we are shooting on government land at the discretion of the Minister. And we want to make sure that the Minister and the government has every confidence that what we are doing on government land is done so in accordance with all of the rules and regulations and procedures and policies, so that we are incident free and we provide a great service. And because we know that at the stroke of a pen, this could all change.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, Adam, it's been great having you in. Thank you so much for coming in and talking us through C&WM. Good luck with it.
Thanks, Tom.
Hope it goes really well.
Yeah, great. Nice to speak to you.
Thanks. Cool. Thanks very much, Adam. Thanks for coming on. It's been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it. If you want to ask any questions, if you've got further questions for Adam, leave them in the comment section below. We will make sure to pass them on and try and get you a response. Like the video if you have, subscribe if you haven't already so you get more great videos. If you've got an idea about who you might like us to interview, leave that in the comments below as well, because we're always looking for interesting people that our members want to hear from. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time.